There's only so many times you can look at yourself in the mirror whilst you're trying to get a vein in your neck with a syringe and go, this is a good look, because that's, you know.
Who do you think is using cocaine here in the UK?
I think it'd be easier to say who's not. The war on drugs is a ridiculous, failing system. My experience is not up for debate. 7 residential rehabs, 14 inpatient detoxes, getting nicked, homelessness. For an addict, you just keep going until you're trying to find this combination of things, juggling this equation to try and make yourself feel okay. I hope this has helped someone. I hope there's someone out there. I said to you when we spoke on the phone, we might save someone's life.
Yeah, agreed.
We'll never meet them, and that doesn't matter. I know what it's like. You know, I know, I've been there. I had the t-shirt, smoked the t-shirt, injected the t-shirt, and I always talk about this because it's really important for people that might need to hear this.
Simon, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
More than welcome. Well, I'm looking forward to this. It's an interesting one for me. This is something we've never gone down this route before, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So let's roll all the way back. Where did you grow up? And tell me your journey and how you became a heroin addict.
Right, so I'm going to try and be clever, and I'm going to quote The Clash. And there's a lyric in a Clash song that says, I wasn't born so much as I fell out, and no one seemed to notice me. We had a hedge back home in the suburbs over which I never could see. And it's from a song called Lost in the Supermarket by The Clash. So I fell out into the world in Weston-super-Mare in 1968. I know I look good for it. Right? And that's where my formative years were as a young kid, very young kid. I had a mum and I had a dad and an older sister. And everything was kind of rosy and okay. My earliest memories are, the summers of the late 70s being endlessly hot, and to quote another song lyric, sticky black tarmac, that's Paul Weller. And then things started to unravel a little bit within the family unit. So I had one grandparent, the rest of them all dead. My dad had me when he was very late. My dad, bless him, if he was alive today, would be 101. He was a pilot during the Second World War. We're of Jewish ancestry. He dropped bombs on Nazis. What's not to like about that, you know? Hero, my hero, your hero, everyone's hero, those guys, you know. Young, absolutely. 17 years old, flying a plane made out of bits of string, over getting shot at. So but like a lot of people of his generation, didn't want to talk about it. He wanted a very normal life. So I think he found Weston-super-Mare fitted the bill. Nothing really happened. There's worse places to grow up. But unfortunately for me and the family, things started to unravel. We had an aunt, his sister, who was like a maiden aunt to me. She was like another mum. She committed suicide, went up in the woods, bottle of whiskey, tablets, dead. And then in 1979, I was at school, still at primary school. One of my best friends dropped dead in front of me, just had an aneurysm and just hit the floor, dead, eyes in the back of their head. And I saw a dead person, and then a few months after that, my father died, and I'd already been sent to a boarding school, which, not a posh school. I'd somehow managed to pass some sort of exam. We weren't rich, we didn't have any money. My dad was born in a room above a pub, and my mum was born in a 2-up, 2-down terraced house in Coventry, which is why I've got a Cockney accent, obviously, and support Liverpool.
A Cockney Cov.
It all makes sense now, doesn't it?
Cockney Cov Scouser.
Yeah. Anyway, losing my dad was just, it was catastrophic for me. There's never a good time to lose a parent.
And how old were you?
I was 11.
11, okay.
And I'd just been sent to this boarding school, and it was really brutal and not the sort of place and not the time, in history where boys or men spoke about how they felt. I was brought home. I was taken to see my dad in the open coffin in the chapel arrest. There he was, dead. And the next day I was sent back to school. And I remember walking into school with my bag sort of over my shoulder, and one of the older kids just said, "Where the fuck have you been, you skiving bastard?" And he gave me a clump over the back of the head. And so if I had any notion that I was going to be able to talk about how I felt, that wasn't going to happen. And then then I was sexually abused by the headmaster for a couple of years.
By the headmaster?
Yeah, by the headmaster of the school, who's dead now. And I don't really want to go into all that sort of stuff. It happened. It wasn't just me. You're talking Catholic schools. You know, that story's been told time and time again. The collusion that goes with protecting those kind of people, and the way that I was targeted as this vulnerable kid looking for a father figure, and predatory paedophiles zero in on that stuff.
Fucking hell.
So that wasn't great.
Did you have, just, I'll be here on that one, did you have any outlet to go and tell anyone about this?
Who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell? The whole, to me, the school, everything that represented, the Catholic Church, the institutions of power. I mean, I'm only 11, 12 years old, remember? Yeah. They were all in it together. Yeah. And what happened to me was if I had any respect for those institutions prior to that, it was gone. Because I knew that they knew. And I knew that it was going on, and I knew that it wasn't just me. But part of the grooming process is the installation of guilt and shame on the victim, and that you can't tell anybody because no one will believe you, and it's your fault.
When these incidents happened, were you told you can't tell anyone?
No one. It was never said. It's like, he's the headmaster of he's a priest. Yeah. You're told, you know, society kind of looks up to people like this, and that's how they get away with it. I think Jimmy Savile got away with it for all them years because the Queen gave him a bloody OBE. You know, that's so when people are elevated to those positions of power, and my behaviour was off the wall. Yeah. So I'm a problem kid. Yeah. And when I was 12, the redemption of a fashion occurred. I had my best mate at school, Tim. His parents were really cool, kind of like we are now, Dodge. You know, cool parents, right? And his mum and dad got us a pair of tickets, and I went to see the Jam. When I was 12, went to my first gig. Actually, that's a lie. My first gig was the Wurzels.
The Jam's a bit cooler, right?
Yeah, but that's like anyway. The first gig that I paid to go and see was, I went to see the Jam, and I was just coming up to my 13th birthday, and all this stuff was going on, and I went into this gig at Stafford Bingley Hall, and I just felt, fucking hell, thank God. Yeah, I can get lost in this. This makes sense to me. Yeah. Music and. You know, I've still got the chops just about. Yeah.
Good barnet, mate, you got there, isn't it?
But it was just, and then an older kid, and no one knew what was going on, but after my dad had died, one of the older kids, Martin Johnson, who I'm still friends with to this day, he was a few years older than me, he came into my dorm one night and he gave me his cassette, a C90 compilation tape. And on it was The Who and the Jam and the Ruts and the Specials, all this kind of like 60s and post-punk music and two-tone. And I used to listen to that cassette every night, and it kept me alive. It saved my life. I've actually done a podcast a few years ago called "Music Saved My Life" because I firmly believed it did. Because without that, I you know, God ain't going to help me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? God's not going to help me. God's fucking letting this happen. Yeah. So I had that, and with that came an identity in what to wear and what to. You know, Paul Weller, even on the back of his album, there was a poem by Shelley. I remember going to the school library to read this poem, "Arise Like Lions," and I thought, oh my God, someone's speaking to me, you know. So I had all that. This is a very long-winded answer to how do I end up being a heroin addict, right? No,
this is good.
This is how we get, this is how I got
absolutely. There. This is your story, mate.
So school was just an endurance. It was like, I need to get out. I need to just survive this. They removed that particular individual for the last couple of years that I was at that school.
So that individual they removed, how old were you when they removed him?
I was 14. So we went back to school, I think, for the last year, the 5th year, and he was gone. And there was no fanfare, no announcement. It was all obviously swept under the carpet. And I subsequently, years later, I found out that they'd farmed him off to this parish in Ireland where he eventually was convicted of a serious sexual assault against a 14-year-old boy. Good. And he was defrocked.
What was his name?
I ain't going to say.
Why not?
Because he's dead. Well, so it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because you can go and Google it and there's nothing there. Trust me.
Yeah, you've done the lot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, okay. So it doesn't matter. tell you afterwards if you want to go and Google it,
Yeah,
George.
no,
But
I'm not that bothered. I just want some things
Here's
like
the
this. I
thing.
want to bring people out. It's like, I know he's Brown Britain.
So he's dead, and he did his
Yeah.
time, and from all accounts, and trust me, I've mixed in certain circles where I made some inquiries about his time in jail, and he got what he deserved.
Yeah, I bet. So when this happened, what did it trigger for you personally inside? There's going to be a lot of hatred towards men, was it?
No,
or was
hatred
it
towards me.
Hatred towards yourself, was it?
Shame.
Okay.
Guilt and shame. What it did is it destroyed any trust that I had with other people, to develop trust with someone. My dad was dead. That decimated me. Yeah. And then this fella steps in and that all happens, right? So to build relationships, healthy relationships, became really difficult because I didn't trust anybody. Didn't know that was how I was. It's just how I was. Yeah. I'm a young kid, remember?
Yeah,
this
right.
is all
12-year-old.
Yeah, this is all said with the years of hindsight and a lot of work and
Do you reckon that trauma that happened when you were 12 was the sort of catalyst of why you became and got into drugs heavily?
So you'd think the answer would be yes, wouldn't you? You think I'd say that's right. I don't think that is the case.
Okay.
I don't think it helped. So what happened was, as my taste in music sort of expanded, and I started to listen to music that was, made by people that used a lot of drugs. So, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all these bands that I adored had clearly taken a lot of drugs. So I built that equation, the sex, drugs and rock and roll, and being in a boys' boarding school, the sex was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Unless you were the headmaster.
Yeah.
The drugs and the rock and roll. So the first time I had a spliff and then listened to Quadrophenia, which is my favourite album by The Who.
Quality.
It was just like, oh, fucking hell, wow. That's what it's supposed to sound like. And I'm not advocating that, kids. Yeah. I'm not going to looking at the microphone. Anyway, listen, children, don't try this at home. But look, it changed things, and my inability to just be in me and be okay with me was kind of smoothed a little bit with alcohol and weed, and then it just became alcohol, weed, fags, amphetamines, and I've seen some of the podcasts that you've done here with a couple of fellas that are in recovery, and my journey wasn't really much different from theirs. It's fairly well trodden. For an addict, you just keep going until you're trying to find this combination of things, substances, people, girls, boys, whatever it might be. You're just juggling this equation to try and make yourself feel okay. I don't think you're getting high, like normal people seem to have a different relationship with substances. With me, I'm just trying to make myself feel okay. Yeah. And suppress all this stuff, the anger and the hurt and the loss and the guilt and the shame and the shoulda, woulda, coulda. And, I'm not a stupid individual, but formal education was done. It was over. And I rumbled through I failed all my exams. I left home at 16 in Western-super-Mare. I ran away to London. And I remember I got off the train. I'd done a rap of speed. I had a couple of cans of Stella, furiously chain smoking. I'm only like 16 and a half, right? 17 maybe. And I stood on the corner of 5th Street and Shaftesbury Avenue, which for people don't know is kind of centre of Soho. This was 1986. It's a very different place back then. Prostitutes, drug dealers, alcoholics, sex shops. I thought, fucking brilliant.
I'm in my element.
Seriously. I was just like, I've arrived. This is a bit of me. This I can get this. The kind of sleazy undercurrent, the underbelly, and I remember saying this, like thinking to myself, there was more's going to happen in the next 5 minutes on this street than in the next 50 years in Western-super-Mare. So I stayed. I found a way, and I did some hostels, and I was in a kind of place for runaway people, and just on the hustle really from quite an early age. And in the following year, something else that changed my life was I went to Glastonbury for the first time in 86, and that was welcome to the counterculture, welcome to another place where none of those rules
do what you want
apply. And the whole kind of thou shall not, Catholicism, religious, Christian, whatever you want to call it, thing, to me was a non-starter. That was done. And then here was this world where people would say, hey man, you know, and I just fell in love with that part of life. It had everything that I wanted, music and drugs, and I took acid for the first time, and you know, I remember watching The Cure and standing next to someone, they're going, "You all right, kid?" Because I was still only like 17, you know, only a couple of years older than my daughter is now. And I just remember turning to this guy and went, "I've never been better." Yeah. Absolutely off my cake on acid. Which was, you know, watching The Cure on acid is quite an experience. I've got to say it. You know, the music's a bit boring, but once you've done some acid, it was like...
Everything's good.
It was fantastic. You know, I ain't going to lie. It was fantastic. But here's the thing with people like me. So the rest of my mates that were there, and we all took acid at the same time. And like the next day, I remember we were sat around the campfire and they were going, "Oh, we should do that again sometime." I'm like, "Yeah, now. Yeah. Let's do it again now." Yeah. And they were like, we haven't even finished this last trip and you want to go again. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, because that's fucking where it's at for me. Yeah. So that's a red flag, but clearly I'm not. I wasn't paying any attention and no one else was either.
So what was your journey after that then? You're coming up into your 17s, 18s, you found drugs, you found music, you found the love of that London lifestyle. What was your route from there to earn money?
So I didn't have any idea what I wanted to be. I still don't, to be honest with you.
And how old are you today?
Old enough to know better. 55 in August, I will be.
We had this conversation, so you're 54.
Yes, I'm 54, but I keep telling people...
Waste it away.
So 6 months before a birthday...
Give them the heads up.
I start kind of... I'm going to be 55. So anyway, so what happened was I was back in London and I was just doing loads of jobs. And I was working in a hotel behind a bar, and I wasn't even 18. It was the 80s, you could just get a job, you know what I mean? And at the end of the month, the bar manager says, "Look, we're going to have to let you go. You've drunk more than you've sold." And they gave me a month's money, and I walked past a travel agent, and it was just as Virgin Atlantic had first started flying to America. So it was 99 quid one way, standby ticket to New York. So I thought, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. And I got a one-way ticket to New York, and I ended up in Los Angeles. I ran out of money really quickly on the East Coast, and it was October, it was getting cold. And I just had enough, I scraped enough money together to buy a one-way ticket to LA, thinking, well, if I'm going to be starving hungry, I might as well be warm. Yeah. And I ended up in LA, and I was there on and off for a couple of years. I found this expat British community that really looked after me. There was loads of lads that had been at the World Cup in Mexico in '86. Yeah. So there was loads of Geordies and Scousers and Manx that had, you know, they were fleeing Thatcher's Britain. They were out. The industry had been destroyed. They'd taken their redundancy. They'd gone to Mexico. They probably smuggled a shitload of drugs back up to America, and it was like off Wiedersehen, but in California. Yeah. So I was working with these lads, and you know, 18 years old still. Yeah. And they were all older than me. I couldn't even drink in the English bars.
Was it 21 out there, wasn't it?
Yeah. But you could get drugs, and I ended up living in this flat in Venice Beach, which back then at night time was fucking dangerous. You know. But me being me, I'm smoking crack with black kids, because to them I'm not like the enemy. Yeah. I'm not like white America. I'm like this they used to call me the crazy limey, and they made me this honorary member of the Venice Shoreline Crips, and it was like really exciting. And then you see someone just get their head shot off, you know, and you're just like, fuck, this isn't a game, is it? These kids, you know, it's like serious. But I'm from Weston-super-Mare, and I'm slightly out of place. You know, but yeah, I picked up the crack there, and
what did you go before you got to the crack? How did that journey go? You were saying earlier, like from the drinking to the fag to the weed to the speed. What was after speed? Obviously the acid, and then what? Did you go cocaine? And
then cocaine. Yeah. So I got a job working on a film set. So this will probably get me banned from America forever, but if you're watching, whoever's in charge when I next want to go, it's all in the past, right? I had a false green card, so you could buy, it's the 80s, things were different, you know, this is obviously pre-9/11, and I got a false green card, and I ended up getting a job working as a TV and film extra. So I was on like Fame, and I did this TV show called China Beach where we were dressed up as GIs with M16s with black. It was fucking brilliant. Stoned at me all the time.
Quality.
Just, and winging it, really. Yeah. And I'm on a set one day and I'm talking to this old American. I say old, he's probably younger than I am now, but he seemed old at the time because I'm still like 18 years old. And he's like, hey, you like to get high? I'm like, fuck yeah. And he pulls out this bag of Coke and he's like, you want to do a line? And I'd not done cocaine at that point. And I was like, yeah, whatever, fucking. So he's my new best mate, and when you're an extra on a film set, you spend a lot of time sitting around waiting. You don't do much, you just wait and then you do your walk. And what they don't like people doing is just talking all the time. But when you just fucking line of Coke the size of a snake, me and this guy who's like my new best mate, and he's like, oh, so listen, if you want to shift some of this stuff for me, to your English chum. So all of a sudden, I'm like the guy selling the Coke in the English pub in Santa Monica. Yeah, like 19 years. How did that happen? It wasn't my plan, but it's what happened. And then one day I didn't have any, and it was a Friday night, and bizarrely enough, I knew that the manager of the apartment building that I lived in, he'd serve up a little bit every now and again. So I went to see him, and he went, I don't have any powder, but I've got some rock. Now, I'd been living in Venice Beach on and off for a year at this point, and I'd seen the crack epidemic at first hand. Yeah, you'd seen people walking around like fucking something from the Walking Dead,
ghosts,
just ghosts.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a good look. There's nothing about it. But of course, with the impetuosity and the stupidity of youth, it's not going to happen to you, is it? It's like Zamo in Grange Hill. It's not going to happen to you. So the manager of my apartment building gave me my first hit of crack, and obviously I didn't leave his apartment all night. We just stayed there, just on the pipe. And the next morning, I remember thinking to myself, I need to fucking stay away from that stuff because that's a bit Moorish. Yeah, that's gonna.
So even then, you knew
there's no happy ending with this. I mean,
what is the difference between a line of cocaine and smoking crack?
About £1,000 a day.
Yeah. but the hit, what's the feeling like?
Well, am I talking? So I'm assuming that people watching this have got no idea.
So anyone listening to this who ain't got an idea of what it's like taking a line of cocaine versus smoking crack.
Well, taking a line of cocaine is like watching Liverpool last year, and smoking crack is like watching them 3 years ago when they won the league.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And does crack last longer? Is crack more addictive?
No, it's an instant thing.
It's an instant. Okay.
So people sort of say it's a bit like if you're looking at a skyscraper and you with crack, you get in the lift and you're on the top floor within seconds, whereas sniffing coke all night, it's a bit like having a casual walk up the stairs. Right. Anyway, it clearly. It was destroying and continues to destroy communities everywhere. And back then it was fueling the violence of the gang wars in America and that still go on to this day, obviously. But then it was an epidemic, and I just walked straight into it. And, I'd be out at 3 o'clock in the morning in parts of town that, 19-year-old white boys from Weston-super-Mare had no place being. Yeah. Because I'm driven by the need to score. And obviously that doesn't end well. I managed to leave America. I sold the car that I had. I smoked my last hit of crack on the toilet on the plane, flying back. And get this, the plane that I flew back on, Dodge, was called the Atlantic Clipper. It then flew on to Germany, turned around, came back and was blown up over Lockerbie.
Was that right?
I was on that plane, yeah. Yeah, so anyway. And I go back to Weston-super-Mare. So I've been in Hollywood, LA, Venice Beach for a couple of years, thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, thinking my life was going to be this big, huge sort of, like a film. Yeah. And then I wake up one morning and I'm back at my poor old mum's house in Weston-super-Mare. I'm like, what the fuck's happened? How did that happen? It was December 1988.
And how old were you roughly there?
20.
20, okay.
And I'm on the biggest come down like ever because I've been like piping for months and months and months and months, and I go and see the doctor. I say the family doctor, like our own doctor, but the doctor that we were registered with, and I told him sort of what I'd been doing, and he he leant across the table and went, "Look, Simon, I suggest you get a job and stop taking drugs and maybe drink a little bit less." And I was just like, "Well, you're no fucking use, are you?" You know what I mean, how's that going to help? because it's 1989,
Yeah.
and of course I've now walked into the beginning of rave culture and ecstasy, and not taking drugs is like the last thing that I'm going to do, innit? So I'm going to get involved with that. So I get involved with that. I don't stay in Western that long. I'm back in London. And you know, I walk into that, and I've got to say, you know, I walk into good times.
Mate, rave scene, they're the best times
We're having
ever,
good times.
right?
We're having good
Late
times.
80s?
Late 80s, early
Amazing.
90s, before it started to get dark,
Yeah.
you know, before
The
Dave
club
Courtney's
scene.
get
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Before the villains, before people see it as
Earning a lot of
an
dough.
earner.
Yeah.
And it was more like, you know, where are you from? Oh, great, man, nice shoes, nice,
Yeah.
you know, just in a field,
Yeah.
having a good time.
Mm.
But you know, if you care to sort of look at the sort of flow chart of youth culture and drug culture, you know, what goes up must come down.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the 60s, everyone's doing loads of Purple Hearts and blues and speed, and they go up, and then towards the end of the 60s, it all gets a bit psychedelic. And then there's the first wave of opiate addiction and people doing heavier downers, and we end up getting fucking prog rock, so make of that what you will, you know, awful 25-minute guitar solos and all that dreadful stuff. And then punk comes along and everyone's doing speed again, and we get like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and all that sort of stuff. Ah! And then that, you know, that comes down, and then there's this kind of second wave in the late 70s and early 80s of heroin addiction, and you've got the fall of the Shah of Iran, and the countries awash with gear, and you know, these things happen. And then the same thing kind of happens again in the early 90s, is that, you know, we're all up, out, staying awake for days and and then, you know, I remember someone just put some heroin in front of me on a bit of foil, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. And what you're going to ask me is, what's that like? I'm assuming that's what you're going to ask me. Sort of thing.
I want to know what heroin looks like and how you take it. I know it's brown and it's on a foil, but what actually are you doing there?
You're smoking it, so it kind of like forms a sort of, it's like
Okay.
lava. It sort of becomes.
So you're burning underneath. I've seen people do it before. They're burning it on the streets.
And it heats up, and then you inhale the fumes.
Okay.
So it burns out whatever impurities are left in it. I mean, that's one way of smoking. And that particular kind of heroin. So prior to that, heroin wasn't smokable. It was only sort of because of, you know, the fall of Iran and this Iranian, Afghanistani kind of heroin. Prior to that, it all came from the Far East, and it was white heroin, and you can't smoke that. You can inject it, really. Don't do that, kids. Like, I'm pointing the mic.
Pointing the mic.
Don't do that either.
So how old were you when you first took heroin?
20.
20. Bloody
20.
hell.
And I thought I was having a midlife crisis at 20, you know, because I thought my life was going to be, I was going to be in America, and I was going to do this, and I was going to, you know, I mean, I'm just mad. I'm just a really quite delusional young man, you know, taking loads of drugs. I'd formed my first band, and we were going to, obviously, it was the best band in the world, because if you don't think you're in the best band in the world, you're in the wrong band.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out because...
What does heroin make you feel like? When you take it, is it an instant hit? And what is that feeling?
Oh, when you smoke it, so the way I've described it to people in the past is like, it makes everything okay. So whatever's going on in your life, like, I could smoke some smack now and I'd be able to say, you know what, this season's going really well for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Fucking great. We're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. We're going to win the Champions League. We're going to get readmitted into... Because you just don't... You know what I mean? It's like fucking complete delusional. You know, medically, it's been used for centuries. Yeah. It's the strongest painkiller known to man. You know? As over the history of it being sort of synthesised from the opium poppy, you know, to morphine in the late 1800s, to heroin, which actually it comes from a German word, Herosh, I think is how you pronounce it, which is called heroic. Yeah. Makes you feel heroic. Right. Untouchable. Fucking hell. Like nothing matters. You cannot fucking touch me. I am God. Yeah. And that's, you know, and then you start injecting it and you fucking take that a little bit further. And then if you're someone like me, you start adding cocaine to your injection. So you're hitting up speedballs of cocaine and smack then.
Were you injecting
I started
heroin?
to inject, at that time.
And then you were mixing cocaine with heroin and injecting it?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
And what's that feeling like, going from injecting heroin, from smoking heroin to injecting heroin? What's the difference, feeling-wise? Just quicker.
Man, it's hard to sort of describe it without sounding like I'm eulogising it, but you don't do it because it makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If there's... I'm going to sort of switch this a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I have one child, right? She was born in 2008 and I was 4 years clean at that point. And they pulled her out of her mum's belly. She was born by C-section, and they put her in my arms. And I looked at her and I said, Tabitha, I love you. I don't even want to say it right now. And so that's the only thing that's ever come close to how I felt on heroin.
Right. And the mixture...
And if you're a parent and you've had that experience...
Yeah, of course, nothing beats it.
Then you know what I'm
okay.
talking about. Now, it's a different thing, but it's that level of emotion.
Yeah.
Just kind of, you know... I would do anything for that baby. I will do anything to protect this child. I'll stop a fucking bullet for this child. It is my own flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, been part of bringing this thing into the world. And I felt the same way about heroin.
So mixing heroin and cocaine, injecting, what's that feeling like?
Well, it depends what your percentages are. You know?
So what would you do? I'm just intrigued by this completely. What percentage would you throw in?
So me...
50-50?
Me, I'm a 50-50 kind of guy. I like the rush of the coke, and then the smack sort of catches it up and it just sort of calms you down a little bit. I've got friends, most of them are dead, not surprisingly, who kind of were liked the sort of hold tight, you know. It's like going up a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then you have that sort of rush that just floods your whole body. And you're just, you know, you're omnipotent, you know, you're just untouchable. And that lasts for, you know, there's a few variables in this, the quality of the drugs and your tolerance, and you build up a tolerance, and it's obviously not sustainable, and it's really fucking dangerous.
Yeah. How much were you spending on drugs a day at your peak?
So this is my American visa going right out the window, innit? So I sold drugs.
Yeah.
So that's what I did in the 90s. I was known as the Cat in the Hat, and I was at festivals and I was in the music scene. I kind of thought that I was a musician. I was always going to get a band together, but basically I was a drug addict that supported his habit by selling pills. And now listen, you know, Pablo Escobar, I was not.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't shipping in tons of gear from here, there, or anywhere. I was reasonably well connected, and I could always get my hands on a parcel of this, that, or the other if I was going to a festival. But this is like me as a drug addict, right?
Yeah.
So I went to Glastonbury, I think it was 94. I took 10 ounces of coke, 1,000 E's, 500 hits of acid, a couple of ounces of weed, a couple of ounces of hash, a few other bits and pieces, my own stash of heroin, and I went with my business partner, who's, you know, wasn't an addict, took drugs, but not an addict, not like me. And he came home from that weekend with 10 grand profit. I came back owing someone 500 quid.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's an addict with a load of drugs. An addict who doesn't like himself, who would give people drugs. I once fronted Primal Scream like 100 E's. Like, you're going to get any money back from them? They're fucking Scottish drug addicts. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to fucking give you your 100 pills back, are they? But you know, I was so desperate to be liked and to be wanted and to fit in that, you know, I was a great low-level drug dealer because I was always there.
Yeah.
If you went to a festival or a gig any time between 1990 and 96, and you went, "Where's the Cat in the Hat?" I'd be lurking about somewhere. Which is how I met the next question you're going to ask me. So, who?
Who were you serving drugs to?
Well, everyone at that time, but I think it was the end of 93, I get a phone call at home from the promoter of this little club in King's Cross in London, the Water Rats. He said, "Look, I've got this band here. It's the first gig in London. They're driving me bad for a bit of coke." And I'm like, you know, if I had £1 for every time, he was like, "They're the next big thing, mate. They're going to be huge." I'm like, "Yeah, of course they are. Fucking Tuesday, whatever night it was." I was at home doing heroin, watching fucking Brookside, you know. Not asked. I'd go out and some band from Manchester. He ring on me, he's pleased, Tom, do me a favour, do this. So anyway, I go down and it's Oasis and they're playing at the Water Rats, and I stand there, and maybe it was the fact that I'd just whacked up a load of heroin, maybe it's the fact that they were at that point just the most incredible thing that I'd seen. And I remember thinking, well, this is clearly my Beatles and Rolling Stones. You know, all the other bands that I'd fallen in love with are either from back in the day and past their best, or, I mean, the Jam had obviously split up the decade, you know. But I just remember thinking, this is it. This is going to, you know, being up close, 15, 20 feet from a young Liam Gallagher in a club with 200 people in it, listening and watching Oasis basically play their first album, which is my favourite album to this day by them. And just being completely blown away. And we hooked up afterwards, and I was kind of in their orbit right up until Nebworth, when they played Nebworth.
And what year was Nebworth?
96.
96. That was their biggest gig, wasn't it?
That was, yeah.
And
I left Nebworth before they played because my heroin habit was so out of control that I'd scrape myself onto the guest list and like scrape myself, because the word gets out, oh, he's on smack. Like, now the hypocrisy, if you want to call it that, of the music industry is you can walk around chatting absolute bollocks, coked off your tits with coke falling out your nose, and everyone's like, fucking the geezer. The minute people talk about heroin, unless of course you're making the money. So if you're the Happy Mondays, it's like, all right, Sean, you know. And I totally respect Sean Ryder for sorting this shit out, you know what I mean? But so if you're making people money, then people keep their mouth shut. If you're like some two-bob fucking drug dealer like me, then you become persona non grata quite quickly, because there's a line of other people queuing up to take your job. And so Nebworth to me was, for Oasis, I guess it was their sort of high watermark, really. You know, it was this huge thing they did, and I'd got there hours before they went on, and I'm in a Portaloo backstage smoking crack, and to sort of take the edge off that, and my heroin habit is vicious at this point, and I don't think there's any other kind of heroin habit actually, but and I think, well, I'm going to just have a hit and then I'll go and mooch about backstage and, you know, whatever. And I'm like that. I'm trying to find this little bag of gear that I've got, and it's gone. And you know, those moments in life where you just go, oh fuck, like you've left your car keys, or you just remember, oh, you've left. Right, so I've just gone. I've left it in London. I've left this heroin in London. You can't walk around backstage going, anyone got any smack? It's not. It's not done. It's not a done thing. And a couple of people that I knew were similarly afflicted to me. When I found them, they're like, no, we ain't got anything either. So that's it. I'm going home. Simple.
So you left before the gig started? Just to go and get another hit? Fucking hell.
And you know, this might sound a bit like, you know, a sort of a fairly sort of theatrical metaphor for the thing, but of course everyone else is arriving. This is like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, so there's like 150,000 people all coming this way, and I'm going that way. And I had my passes and all that. I remember stopped some kid and went, here, I'll have that, go and hang out with them cunts backstage. So if you're watching this, that's me, you've got to thank, by the way, whoever you were. And I go back to my dealers in Kentish Town, and I just remember sort of getting my gear and having a hit, and waking up at whatever time it was and watching the news headlines, Oasis making history. And bizarrely, Liam gave me a shout out from the stage, and he dedicated one of the sources for the Cat in the Hat.
Did he?
And there I was, fucking slumped in the seat. Back in London,
yeah.
And then I'm just aware of the time, because I want to get into the important stuff, really. So that was 1996. The next 10 years, 7 residential rehabs, 14 inpatient detoxes, untold, locking myself in the flat, I'm going to rattle it off, I'm not using again. Couple of trips halfway around the world to come off, to get clean. Getting nicked, homelessness, people dying, watching people getting slashed across the face because they owed a crack dealer £5, people getting shot. I don't know how many people died, acquaintances. Occasionally getting clean and staying clean for a period of time, or clean-ish, not completely clean. Not accepting that, for me, clean's going to have to mean everything. It's not going to be just the heroin, or it's going to have to be everything. Really being resistant to that idea. In amongst all that madness, I got married. I put my first wife through a lot. I watched people die. It's just grim. 10 years of just fucking hell, with the occasional bit of respite. I think I thought that getting married would save me. I think my wife probably thought that she could. Lots of people thought they could save me, but the only person that can save an addict is yourself.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time, and it caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. My poor mum, bless her. I mean, we don't speak very often, and I had no idea what that must have felt like until I became a parent myself.
Yeah.
But she spent 10 years waiting for a phone call saying your son's dead. And I was a menace. I wasn't a gangster. I wasn't out on the pavement fucking tucking people up for money. I was like robbing bacon at Sainsbury's.
Yeah. It got to that level, did it?
Yeah. Okay. Begging.
Yeah.
On the street. I remember sitting outside a kebab shop at the end of my road. So I was living in Stoke Newington in Hackney. Winter, freezing cold. Got no gas, no electric, no furniture in this flat. My wife, she'd left months ago. It was just me in this empty flat. And I'm sat there and I see this fella come out the kebab shop with like parcels. He's obviously bought a huge meal for his family, and he's walking towards his car, and I get up off the floor where I'm begging, and I open his car door, and he gave me a £5. I remember thinking, it was just before Christmas, I remember thinking that's the best Christmas present I've ever had. I mean, how sad's that?
Yeah.
Because a £5 halfway to £10, and £10 a bag of gear.
Yeah.
Right? I genuinely felt, it's fucking amazing, thank you. That's where I went. And, people asked me, was there one thing that eventually led me to getting clean? And there wasn't one thing. It was just eventually. I mean, there's only so many times you can look at yourself in the mirror whilst you're trying to get a vein in your neck with a syringe and go, this is a good look, because that's, So what happened in 2006 was my sister tracked me down, and she had 4 children. She still has 4 children. And the oldest one was coming up to his 10th birthday. And I'd had bits of interaction with them in the brief periods where I'd sort of been clean for a little while. And she put him on the phone, and he said, Uncle Simon, I'm going to be 10 in a few weeks, and you need to take me ice skating before you die. Right, now this is a kid growing up in a little village in Weston-super-Mare, 10 years old, no understanding of addiction or drugs, and saying to his uncle, can you take me ice skating before you die? Now, I imagine my sister had given him the script for that phone call.
Yeah.
And then she got on the phone and she said, so you've got 2 weeks to get yourself down here, and you need to be clean off everything. No methadone, nothing. Completely clean. And if you can't do that, then that's it. We're going to have to just walk away, me and the kids and her, the family. I don't have a very big family. They're kind of all I've got.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd had, like I said, all those periods in treatment, and I had counselling, and I had this and that, and I'd been exposed to all kinds of theories around what recovery could be, or what addiction was or wasn't. And something happened. I don't know. It was kind of like a fucking exorcist, a truth that, so I rang my ex-wife. She wasn't my ex-wife then. I rang my wife and I said, look, can I come and sleep on the floor? Can I come and get clean? And she said, oh yeah, your sister's been on the phone, so yes, you can stay here for 2 weeks, but if you've gone, if you nick anything, I'll call the police and I'll tell them about the other stuff that you've nicked off me. So you've got this opportunity. And I didn't have anywhere to live, and I went over to where she was living, and I got clean.
Wow.
I got clean.
2006.
2006. I remember the day she'd gone to work. It was the first day, so I arrived off my face. Do you know what I mean? And she says, "Right, so tomorrow that's it. You're going to go to an NA meeting." Because I'd been doing some of them in the past. She goes, oh, that's the rules, basically. If you're staying, you've got to go to meetings. And that morning, I woke up and I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to throw myself off the fucking window ledge. I'd rather die. I think I'm just going to... So I sat on this window ledge and I looked down. I was only 3 floors up, and I'm a coward and I'm quite vain. Which are what people might call defects of character, but they saved me because my vanity went, well, if I don't fucking die, I'm going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And that's not a good look,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I rang someone in recovery and said, look, where's the nearest meeting? And they told me, and it took me, and I always talk about this because it's really important for people that might need to hear this. It took me a couple of hours to shuffle to this meeting. I was like 8 stone ringing wet dodge. I was covered in abscesses. You know, I was yellow, a jaundice. I hadn't had a shower for fucking months. And I got to this meeting, and without breaking people's anonymity and trying to stay within the traditions of 12-step fellowship, what I experienced was a lot of people going, we fucking love you.
Yeah.
And we can help. And what happened to me was I just went, you know what, I don't know what to do. Can you lot help me?
Wow.
And tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'll do everything.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
No more on my terms.
Yeah.
No more picking and choosing how I'm going to do this. I surrender, and I fucking can't do this on my own. And I remember this fella, and we're mates to this day. He said, "It's nice to see you," and no one had said that to me for fucking years because it wasn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't nice to see me. And that's what happened. And no rehab, no detox, cold turkey.
What is cold turkey feeling like?
It's the opposite.
I just see
the opposite of cranking up a
cranking up,
springboard.
yeah.
It's what it feels like.
Well, you see it on the TV and stuff, and it
Fucking
just
horrible.
looks
It's
fucking horrible. Yeah.
Physically, it's pretty grim. Physically, it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
Really unpleasant. For me, I've done hundreds of them at that point, so you kind of know physically. It's like you're recovering from an injury. There's a timeline to it, right? You know, you're a sportsman. You know, you do your hamstring. You know, you'll be well, okay. This is the timeline for recovery from this, and you can do this, and then that'll happen, and then right?
Yeah.
So with withdrawal from heroin, drugs, alcohol, all of them, you know, they all have their own sort of physical timeline. But I think the thing that was and is most difficult is the mental anguish, this despair, this sense of loneliness and depression that seems so persuasive and like it's never going to end. This complete fucking despair and this massive disconnect from everybody and everything. It's just you. It's kind of like, I've tried to write about it in the past and it's really hard to describe. It's just loneliness on an industrial scale of, it's like being in a black void, cold, and you can't touch or feel anything, and it's never going to fucking stop. And the addict voice is going, why are you even bothering? Because you know you're going to use again, because that's what you do, because you're a piece of shit. Because that's what you always do. You know, it just gets louder and louder and louder as the withdrawals go on. And that's the battle. Now, in my case, this time, I just sat in recovery meetings, breakfast, lunch, dinner, every day for months. That's all I did. I had nowhere to live, no job, no money. Those people looked after me and they said, you never have to use again. And their voice and that collective voice was louder than the voice going, yeah, but you're going to.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened.
And you went straight into NA.
Yeah.
Did you go into CA, DA, anything else? Just straight into NA?
That one will
that
do
one
me.
do you?
It talks about the disease of addiction.
Addiction, yeah. And
So-
what is the 12-step program? For any listeners out there who are struggling, what is the 12-step program?
Do you know what? Everyone has their own experience of it. So I feel the need to say this because I don't believe in God, right? I'm an atheist, bizarrely. An atheist in a 12-step program where the word God is common.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your guests and they've converted they found their own. So for me, that was like, well, hang on, how's this going to work, right? So how it's worked for me is my understanding of a higher power is the collective wisdom of other people.
Yeah.
Right? I need to tap into their experience. I need their support. I need their love. You're a rugby player, right? You can't have a scrum with one person. You need everyone needs to do their job, right? Front row, locks, whatever. If everyone does their job, so that's how I see recovery, right? I'm in this kind of scrum, and I need people to do their thing, and I need to be part of that team. That's for me. So, you know, it really boiled down. What it comes down to is this: is kind of admit the game's up, right? Just that's it. It's done. It's finished, right? You cannot. There are no circumstances that are going to present themselves at any point in your life where you'll be able to use successfully, right? That's the thing. Now, find your own evidence to support that. So look at your relationship with drugs and alcohol, not someone else's, yours. What does that tell you? Mine tells me that I start here and within days, weeks, whatever, I'm fucking sat outside the kebab shop again, thanking someone for giving me a fiver. That's what happens to me every fucking time. Then there's this kind of process of accepting that perhaps this thing that you're part of might restore you to some kind of rational behaviour and thinking. Doesn't say it will, it says it might as a process of time. There's a commitment to getting involved with that. Then there's a bit of serious looking at self, your part, your gear, not someone else's stuff, and maybe throwing out a few long-term resentments. So the fellow that abused me, he had to go. I had to find forgiveness.
Wow.
Right? I had to find forgiveness. Otherwise, he's living in my head the rest of my life, rent-free. That's not going to do me any favours. He's got to go. All those people, they got to go. Bomb, gone. My part in that. How do I do that? What buttons are these people pressing? What's the opposite of that sort of stuff? How can my behaviour reflect my new way of life? And why does that person annoy me? Because you can see it. Oh, because they remind me of me. Don't be him. Right? All that sort of stuff. Don't be the guy preying on the newcomers. Don't, just keep your side of the street clean. Find some kind of meditative practice, whatever it is. For me, it's listening to the fucking Rolling Stones, walking my dog on the beach in Margate. Really loud. That'll do me in the morning. That channels me, gets my feet on the ground. And then fucking help other people. Help other people. I hope this has helped someone. I hope there's someone out there. I said to you when we spoke on the phone, we might save someone's life. We'll never meet them, and that doesn't matter.
I think what you're saying here, mate, is going to save a lot of people's lives.
One person gets a bit of hope, right? Job done for today. And I don't do it perfectly, but I try. I try it with my music. I try it with my writing. To show people that beyond the absolute daily hell of addiction. I mean, when I was sat outside that kebab shop, I thought not using drugs would be boring. I genuinely thought that. And there's nothing more boring than being a drug addict. Nothing. It's the most boring, meaningless existence you could imagine.
Do you think a lot of addicts think that they want to get off boozing or alcohol, and they go, I'll be boring. I'll be boring. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. So my life, I don't know how long we've got, since 2006 I became a parent. I've already spoken about that. My daughter's nearly 15.
Fair play, mate, hold on.
She's never seen me drink, right?
Yeah, amazing.
She's never seen me drink. She won't see me drink, just for the day and all that, right? I've never said to her, Tabitha, I'll see you, I'm not turned up. I've never promised her anything, and I don't have much to give her. I've got my time. I speak to her every morning when she's up in London with her mum. She comes to me on weekends. So much of what I've learned in recovery has trickled down into her. She's a very different young person than me, thank God, and she knows that her dad is there for her, and that's like the greatest gift, aside from actually being clean. I'll be 17 years clean and sober in June.
I think that's a massive respect, mate. 17 years clean from everything that I'm hearing right now that you've gone through. And you're saying most of your mates are not around anymore.
They're all dead. When Tabitha was born, so 2008, me and her mum had this kind of like non-religious welcome to the world ceremony. There were 8 people there. So 4 of her mum's best friends and 4 of mine. They're all dead.
All your 4?
Yeah. Wow. Carrie, Luke, Kev and Earl.
All from?
Addiction. They were all clean at the time. And they were all musicians or music lovers. Really talented guitar players. I mean, I'm a fucking arsehole on the guitar. I can write songs. I'm a great songwriter. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, if I may.
Absolutely, mate. I've seen and heard, mate. You're a talent.
So this idea that being clean would be boring is really common in people that are using, because what they'll remember and what we remember is we remember the good times. We remember Heston service station at 4 o'clock in the morning in 1990. Come on,
let's have it.
Where's the rave, right? We remember that, good times.
Yeah.
Bizarrely, what we forget is in a flat in Hackney with no gas, furniture, electricity, and a fucking syringe in my neck, with my pal on the floor fucking twitching because he's hit a fucking artery, blood going everywhere, and me going, oh, fucking, hang on a minute, let me get,
Wow.
We forget that. Remember, We have a very selective. We can have a selective.
Just going back
memory.
to your 4 best mates there,
Yeah.
you said they were clean
Yeah.
when they passed away.
No, they were clean when they were at Tabitha's Welcome to the
okay.
World thing.
And they carried on using.
And then
post
they
that.
relapsed.
Okay.
They all relapsed, and they didn't. You know, people, and I was one of them, had this idea that recovery can be like this revolving door. You know, you do meetings and you sort of slaff out, and then you know what, I don't need this anymore. And look.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, it's not the only way to recover,
Yeah.
right? There isn't, if there was a one-size-fits-all, Dodge, if there was a magic bullet for addiction, the person that discovered that would be very, very rich, and then they'd be very, very dead because the drug cartels would assassinate them, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't one. There isn't one way. I haven't got a magic wand. I can't tell people how to recover. That's what worked for me, and it works for lots of people. It doesn't work for everybody, you know. What doesn't work is doing nothing. You have to do something differently. You have to start doing things differently. And everyone has their own process, and I don't have the monopoly on it, and I haven't done anything perfectly, and I'm not a perfect human being. And if I had some of my time again, I'd do things differently, and I've upset a few people along the way. I like to think I might have helped a few people along the way. So far, so good, you know.
And part of that 12-step journey, do you have to go back and apologise for people? Do you have to go back into your past and see all the bad thing you've done and go and apologise?
Do you know what? It's a really misunderstood part of the process. So it's not really apologising, because that's just a word, right? And people, the chances are that person's heard it a million times before. Yeah. What it is actually giving them an opportunity to tell you what it was like to be on the receiving end of you.
Oh wow, that's powerful.
And you to hear it.
Okay.
Right? And then the amend is to not behave like that anymore. And some of those incidents, some of those people, a lot of people on my list were dead. Yeah. So there's nothing you can do. Yeah. And there were a couple of close personal relationships with ex-girlfriends that to have waltzed back into their life 20 years down the line would have caused more harm than good. So you need a bit of guidance with that stuff. You know, you need someone with a bit of wisdom and a bit of experience. But yeah, that's part of that. Is and most of the people when I did that first time round were like, Simon, it's fine. My sister went, okay, I can sit down then. I'm going to tell you. Are you
Make the most
comfortably?
Of this.
Get yourself a cup of tea.
Yeah,
you know. So there was a bit of that.
What did your sister say to you when she sat down?
She said, "Do you know how scared we were? Do you know how selfish you were? Do you know the terror that she lived?" And my sister, by the way, was a copper.
You couldn't have written it.
Well, I used to say, I used to go, well, if it wasn't people like me, you'd be out of a job. And think it was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's funny. It's not that funny, is it? But she came looking for me a few times. You know, drove to London and pulled me out of a crack house. And, you know, I'm a little brother and you know, always will be. You know, there's only 13 months between us, and we're actually very similar people who have had very different lives. Yeah. You know, we come from the same place. We both experienced the passing of my dad. She found him dead, you know, in a chair upstairs. You know, so, you know, we're cut from that cloth.
Did you find when you were going back? I was rolling back a bit here. Did you find when you were using heroin, you said everyone was pushing you away? About Liam and Noel Gallagher, did they clock it and go, right, see you later?
Yeah, everyone did.
Everyone, okay.
Yeah. Once word's out, I remember, I'll tell you when it happened, there was a show on telly called The White Room, and Oasis were on The White Room, and I was there, and the usual sort of suspects lurking around backstage, and another girl, and I won't mention her name because it really doesn't matter, but she was in a really successful band at that time, and we were all in Oasis's dressing room, and we both, me and her, knew we had a heroin habit, and we thought it was a secret. It wasn't a secret. And she didn't really care who knew, and she shouted across the dressing room to me, like, and everyone's there, Simon, you got any smack? And like the temperature just fucking dropped, you know, in the room, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for me in doing what I was doing. And you know what, Dodge, I didn't set out to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, just
everything that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
I didn't. When I was a little kid, go, right, here's what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah. You know, I wanted to be Kenny Dalglish when I was a kid, and that became obvious quite quickly that was never going to happen. Then I wanted to be Keith Richards, and I ended up more like Keith fucking Chegwin. You know? Because I always wanted to be someone else, somewhere else, doing something else. right? That's at the core of addiction for me, this kind of inability to just be me. Today, I'm fucking me, you know, warts and all. You know, I'm all right. I'm okay. You know,
you look in a good place, mate.
I'm okay.
Right now,
You know, there's some things that could be different that I need to concern myself with. I still struggle trying to make a few, you know, earn a living is baffling to me. I don't know how to do that. You know, I've never been driven by money. I have managed to make 3 albums in the last 6 years. I've just finished a new one.
What's it called?
So this new album is called Welcome to Wilderness Hill.
Lovely.
And I'm on Spotify as Hightown Pirates, and YouTube as Hightown Pirates.
Your band is called Hightown Pirates.
Hightown Pirates is where you'll find me. And you know, I've worked with loads of incredible musicians. That we made an album a couple of years ago called All of the Above, and everybody who played on that album was in recovery, is in recovery still.
Brilliant.
Even the studio we recorded it in, it's got a picture of my daughter on the front. It's all pressed up on vinyl. Like they're all on. The new one is called Welcome to Wilderness Hill, and I might actually call the new band Wilderness Hill. I don't know yet, but if you want to find what I've done in the past, it's Hightown Pirates. You know, I genuinely thought life would be boring. I've travelled all over the world. I've seen Liverpool win the league. Yeah. Except you weren't allowed to go.
Go, yeah.
Can you believe that? After all that time, I had a ticket, and of course you couldn't go. It was COVID.
Yeah.
But I saw us win the Champions League. I went to Madrid. So I go and watch the Reds when I can. I've made records. I'm watching my daughter grown up. I've been remarried. My wife, Becky, you know, who I've known since I was 10.
Really?
Yeah. I've had a book published. The book is called Too High, Too Far, Too Soon. It's
Too High, Too Far, Too Soon. What a name.
So from the Waterboys song, The Whole of the Moon, from Glastonbury 1986.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, hard copy is out of print at the moment. It's on Kindle. You can pick up a second-hand copy. That was turned into a play. I did a 4-week run in the West End in London playing myself because, quite frankly, no one else is good looking enough or stupid enough to do a 2-hour non-scripted performance in the West End. But I did that. Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin came, walked up to me afterwards and went, "Simon, man, you've blown my mind." That's fucking Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
No offence, that's not the bloke from Kasabian. That's fucking Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. I've met some of my musical heroes.
Like?
Pete Townsend. I met Pete, and he looked me up and down and said, "You look great, mate." You know, and asked about the band, and you know, these are people I've met. They're in recovery. It's no secret these guys have been sober for a long time, and I remember thinking, well, if these guys with the genius that they have, and let's be clear, it's genius. They're not, you know, they're not like me. And all the wealth and opportunities that they have, if they're staying clean and sober, then really I probably need to do that as well. They make it kind of look attractive, and I suppose that's what I try and do in my own way is show people, because you can tell people it's whatever. My experience is not up for debate. My experience is my life since 2006 has been anything but boring. Sat outside that kebab shop in 2006 was really fucking boring and sad and lonely. And whilst it's not been a cakewalk at times, because life's not, you know, no, life carries on being life, clean or not. You know, it isn't. There aren't people throwing rose petals or in front. Oh, look, here he comes. You don't get a medal for being clean, because most of the rest of the world have been fucking waiting for you to fucking sort your shit out, you know, and go to work and earn a living. Well done for getting a job. You know. You've had 25 years off. Right? So we have to find our way, you know, and I try and live a life, and like I said, I don't always get it right, where I don't harm people, and be the dad that my daughter can be proud of, and you know, like I said, I got remarried a few years ago, and I left London after 30 years, and my wife Becky and I, we live in Margate. So if you're ever in Margate, come say hello. Started a little recovery thing down there, and trying to, you know, because Margate is people talk about, oh, it's dead trendy, Shoreditch on the sea. They mean Shoreditch 1974. It's still some of the most socially deprived neighbourhoods in the country. There's poverty, you know, there's addiction and alcoholism everywhere. And so I'm trying to do a little bit down there, because I mean, here's the thing, Dodge, right? I do it because it helps me.
Yeah. Helps you by helping
I'm
others.
not a saint, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not this altruistic. I do all this stuff because ultimately it helps keep me clean.
Yeah.
That's my responsibility. First and foremost, stay clean and sober.
Yeah.
Another day.
And you
Because
take
without
each day as it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And try and...
How long have you been with your wife for?
So we've known each other, right, since we were 10. We
Yeah.
grew up in the same town. And we lived together in London, in Hackney for 4 or 5 years, and then we got married in 2019. Then we haven't had the honeymoon yet.
Because of old COVID and stuff,
yeah. Yeah. So she wants to have a honeymoon at some point, so I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll find...
Simon, this is some life you've lived. This is called Eventful Lives podcast, and this is one of the most eventful lives I've listened to on a one-to-one like this.
I still think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, I think so. I think you look $1 million, by the way.
Thank you.
You
do. My dream, just putting it out there, right? My dream is to have a band on stage. So the music I make, we have a horn section, Hammond organ player, keyboards, gospel singers. It's really expensive to do that, and I don't have any money. Yeah. So all I can do is keep writing the songs in the hope that something one day someone will go, do you know what, fucking here, I'll go and fucking do that. Yeah. And carry that message. Yeah. Because people say, oh, what's the music of Hightown Pirates like? So it's a mashup of all the stuff that I like. You can hear the Stones, you can hear a bit of Jam, you can hear a bit of the Warp, you can hear all this stuff. And this is what other people have said, by the way, not me. Yeah. But what I say is it's the sound of redemption. Lovely. Horn sections slamming in and just, you know, and I played it to a couple of friends of mine last night who are, you know, in their 70s, born again Christians, right? I said there's a bit of swearing in it, and they listened to a song and they were like, yeah, I understand that, and it's a message, you know. And I don't want to sound too self-important, but it's been a real joy for me to that stuff that I wanted to do when I was a little kid. Yeah. When I saw the Jam and started jumping around my bedroom with a tennis racket, thinking, you know, addiction robbed me of all that as a young man. I'm very realistic that, you know, no one is going to give a middle-aged guy much of an opportunity in the music world. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. Whatever. But I'm not going to let that stop me making music and working with people. And like I said, we just, I think, finished a new album down in Margate. It's been really hard. Been difficult. It's hard to make money in music. Well, I ain't going to make any money out of it. Yeah. Where can people find you, Si? Like this is fascinating. Where can people find anyone listening out there who wants to listen to your music and get in contact with you? So I'm on Instagram as Hightown Pirates.
Hightown Pirates on Instagram.
Yeah, we're friends on Instagram, right? Yeah. So I'm also on Twitter as Hightown Pirates Wilderness Hill. If you just Google Hightown Pirates, that'll bring you to me. If you're someone struggling with addiction and you want to talk and you're a fella, I don't deal with ladies, that's out of my remit. But if you're a fella and you want to talk, just hit me up or get hold of Dodge. And all I can do is listen and give you some pointers because I know what it's like. You know, I know I've been there. I had the fucking T-shirt, smoked the T-shirt, injected the T-shirt, stole someone else's T-shirt, then injected that, you know. Yeah. 2 bob, horrible drug addicts, you know. No glamour in what I did. It was really low end, horrible, nasty stuff, right? And my life's not like that due to the support and help of a lot of people. Yeah. People that have stepped in recovery, shown me the way, made it look attractive to me. Oh, you know what? It's not this weird religious cult that I thought that someone said it was. It's, you know, that's going to work for me. Some of the men that have, you know, supported me, that have repaired the damage that fucking evil twat did all those years ago. I have a sponsor in NA who's just a regular working class guy who's been clean like Ken for nearly 30 years, works for Transport for London, just goes to work. You know what I mean? There's no just a normal fella, but I love that man. I love the bones of him, you know, because he knows me better than I know myself, and he pulls me up occasionally. You know, and I've pissed a few people off. All right. You're not doing it right if you haven't pissed a few people off. You know that. You're in business, right? You know, and I'm going to continue making music. I generally think I'm getting better as I get older. I've got more to write about. Yeah. I think there's huge opportunity there for someone listening now to get in contact with you, because your backstory as well, and the person you've become, and what you've gone through to come out the other end. I need a manager to be the human you are now. Yeah. I need a manager. I'm not going to save lives, but that's how I want to do it. Yeah. That's how I want to do it. But it's, you know, it's you've also got to put food on the table. Yeah. Yeah. This is a powerful story, Si. Thank you.
This is really, really powerful. I really do appreciate you coming on.
I just look. I can come across as a bit self-important, a bit, you know, but I genuinely know. I know, Dodge. I know for a fact that someone who's going to watch, listen to this, is going to go, okay. Yeah. The best email I ever got after my book was published, and it got great reviews. And Irving Welsh tweeted about it, and Russell Brand tweeted about it, and you know, to get Irving Welsh saying most books about addiction are shit, this one isn't. Yeah. Russell Brand. Suzanne Moore, who, you know, is an amazing journalist, writes for The Guardian, Vice magazine. All these people said these amazing things, but the problem is that the publishers retired from publishing a few months after my book was published, so there were no more copies. It was just, anyway, whatever. I got an email one day, and it was sent via my then literary agent, and it basically said, "You'll never meet me. I just want you to know that if someone as fucked up as you can get clean, so can I."
Quality.
If I ever get buried and have a
on your tombstone
quote, "If someone as fucked up as him can get clean, so can you. Goodbye." That's a nice way to end, isn't it?
On that, we're going to end it on that, mate. But just before we finish, I just want to roll back a bit.
Okay.
You said you haven't spoken to your mum in 10 years.
No, I didn't say that.
Did you not?
No.
What did you say?
I said we don't speak much.
You don't speak much.
My mum now is 91. She's got full-blown dementia.
Okay.
She lives in a care home in Weston-super-Mare. I'm going to see her next Saturday. Yeah. I'm in Bristol with my wife and my wife's sister. So, but she's gone. Yeah. You know, dementia. The dreadful thing about dementia is that it's, you know, that you lose the person. Yeah. And even though we haven't been close, you know, I kind of left home really when I went to boarding school. I've got 2 minutes to tell you a story. Yeah. So this is from my mum, right? My mum was born in Coventry in 1932, and she told me this story a few years ago before the dementia got her about why she is. Well, it allowed me to understand why she is the way she is. And my mum, like a lot of people of her generation, were overly concerned with what they thought other people thought about them. Yeah. It was all about the external stuff. Make sure your curtains are clean and your front steps scrubbed and all that sort of working class. Because my mum was born in a 2-up, 2-down terraced house, like I said earlier. My dad was born in a room above a pub, right? I got sent to this school. It wasn't posh. It was a boarding school, but Eton, it certainly fucking wasn't, you know. And I struggled with this relationship with my mum all my life. I've never asked her for advice on anything. I have tapped her up for money when I was a junkie because it's a soft target, and that's kind of what I did because I was a bit of a coward. Yeah. And for years I was trying to find some resolution as how I could have a relationship with my mum. Why was she the way she was? Why wouldn't she, you know? So she told me this story. November 1940, I think it was November the 14th, the Coventry Blitz. So my mum would have been 7 or 8 years old, and her younger brother, my uncle, would have been 4 or 5. Her mum was a housewife, and her dad was a conscientious objector. So he was an air raid warden, didn't want to join the army, didn't want to kill anybody, but wanted to do his bit. So it was historically at that point the biggest air raid in history. The Luftwaffe, they were going to bomb London, and they changed their mind and they decided to wipe out the city of Coventry, and they attempted to do it. My mum told me this story. She said the air raid siren went off, and we didn't have an air raid shelter, an Anderson shelter in our garden, but next door did. So we went down to next door's garden, me and Mummy and Barry, her little brother, and it was just like a bucket for obvious reasons and a candle, and they stayed there for 12 hours whilst the German Air Force tried to destroy the city of Coventry, and very nearly did. And then the all clear was sounded, and she said, her mummy said to me, right, go up Mr. Smith's shop, corner shop, get a pint of milk, because, you know, a cup of tea is the answer to everything, right? And she said, so I went out the back gate, and the street opposite was gone, completely gone, right, sticker bombs, and I walked over a couple of dead people. She was just saying, she's 8 years old, right? Walked over a couple of dead people, got to the corner shop, and that was gone as well. It was just rubble. But I found a bottle of HP sauce in the rubble, so I thought I'd take that back. So I walked back down the street, walked over the dead bodies, went to my mummy and said, Mummy, there's no milk, but I've got some HP sauce. She said, my mum turned me around, smacked me on the back of the legs and said, you take that back this instant. We don't want people thinking that we're looters. Wow. And she made her take it back. And things like that that affected her entire life.
Mm.
Her entire life was driven by what's right and what's wrong, you know, and what people might be thinking. Now, do I care what people think about me? Yes, I do, actually. Does it keep me awake at night? Sometimes. My mum's entire life, sadly, was driven by this kind of what people might think. So what I learned from that story was that my mum just wanted to be able to say to her friends that her son was something other than a drug addict, right? So I got clean in time, before the dementia got my mum, for my mum to be able to tell people that her son had got clean and helped people. And that's all I could ever do for my mum. And that's how we'll finish.
Amazing. Simon, mate, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, mate. Your honesty, the journey you've been through has been a wild one. And thank you for coming on and just speaking your mind.
My pleasure.
You're a gentleman.
Thank you.
Good
nice
man.
To meet you.
Good luck. Yeah, and you.
Thanks.
Cheers, Simon.